All right, so welcome to making your strike visual. For starters, can everyone put like a little star in the chat if you can hear me? I just want to make sure everyone is here and engaged. I know it's like a Monday night, so if you're not, if you're making dinner or something in the background, that's totally fine. You can keep your camera off, but if you want to, put your camera on, because then it's nicer for the rest of us to be able to feel like we're kind of together. So today we're going to learn about using art and visual media to express our strikes narratives and capture the impact of your strikes, because it's so much of activism right now is viewed online. So much of our news cycle is viewed through social media, and so you can really have a much greater impact by making sure that your visuals are really impactful. So definitely an important thing to be focusing on. So things we'll be learning about today are types of art, really basics, some art, how to do art builds, messaging, photography, art marshaling, very basic visual strategy, and we'll do a little activity with that, chants, speakers, and the beauty and imperfection. So this is me. I am currently an organizer with FFFDC, and I also was a founder and co-founder, I guess, of Silicon Valley Youth Climate Strikes and Silicon Valley Sunrise. So I'm a college student, I'm a freshman at American University, and I am honored to be on this call with you guys today. I think we skipped it. That's okay, whatever. So for starters, we're gonna look, oh, sorry, it's glitching a little bit. For starters, we're gonna look at types of signs. But first, it's really important to remember whose land you're on. If you visit slideshow. If you visit native-land.ca, you can look up what specific land you're on by putting in your zip code. I today am on Piscataway land in DC. It's really important that we look back and really acknowledge where we are, because so much of history, or so much of this country's history, has tried to erase and put native land in the past tense, but we are currently in the present on native land. So really important to uplift Indigenous leadership. Okay, now types of signs. So for starters, the easiest stuff to make is handheld signs. Very Fridays for Future, very on brand. If you see the photo here of Greta, she was very, well known for having her handheld sign. So these can be really detailed, as you see below with the How Do We Sleep When Our Beds Are Burning sign. They can be really gorgeous works of art, but there is power in simplicity, like Greta showed. So like I said, this is bare bones basics for these first couple of slides, but materials you need are obviously paint, paintbrushes, or markers. Markers are really good. I've recently started using acrylic markers, which are $5 each, so kind of expensive at the store, but you don't have to, if you're in a rush, it's really easy to bang out a ton of signs with acrylic markers. But yeah, cardboard, you can find this in any dumpster, if you get packages, whatever. Or you can buy, poster board from the store. And then always remember water to wash your brushes off with. I always bring a ton of brushes and paint out to art builds and then forget to bring water to wash them with. So definitely don't forget that. Next, more of intermediate skill level is banner making. So key thing is to put your most important message on your big banner, because if people are just viewing your strike from social media, from a photo, from a news article or story, the big banner is what they're going to see. And so you want the message of your strike to be on this banner. So for example, if you're marching for just general climate justice, if you're marching for a specific local thing, you really want to make sure that that is the main message that's being put out there. So you can really DIY this at home. You can use an old sheet. You can also buy fabric at the store. Definitely look out for discounts. I signed up for a Joann's fabric discount service a while back, and I always get texts. So there are discounts out there because fabric can get kind of pricey, but old sheets work just as well. Paintbrushes and paint, obviously. And also, if you're looking to be a little bit more fancy, you could put I don't know if you can see here, this sign right here, you can put your banner up on little poles, so it's a lot more visible. And in that case, I recommend using staples, like a staple gun. And then also, when you're painting on fabric, this little bad boy brush right here, the foam ones, highly recommend, because you can get really straight lines. So next we've got picket signs. These are a lot more advanced to make just because if you're using a wooden kind, just because it's really hard to get the like material onto the wood. But don't be too scared. It is possible. I've done it. And once you practice a little bit, it gets really much easier once you have the materials. It's important to note at some locations, like here in the Capitol, we aren't allowed to use these on like Capitol grounds because the wood handle could technically be used as a weapon. So, I mean, you know, if you're concerned about this, make sure you check your local laws if you're planning on cooperating with police, because, you know, it's important to not put yourself in danger if you're not expecting that. But yeah, you can make these with canvas and use a staple gun and use wood like you see in the picture above, or you can make a much more simple version, which is actually pretty easy, which is just kind of duct taping like a piece of just sort of like your regular handheld cardboard sign to a ruler or a small piece of wood or something like that. You can also use PVC pipes for these, but those are expensive and it's sometimes harder to carry. So I would recommend using wood or a ruler. So again, materials needed are either for the wood ones, old sheets, canvas, whatever fabric, staple gun, and paint supplies. And then for the cardboard, really simple, cardboard, paint, ruler, tape. And if anyone has any questions at any point, I will be definitely checking out the chat. I might not be super fast at it, but feel free to put any questions in there. So finally, a really easy way to get people engaged at your strike is to have chalk available. Definitely check local rules if you're worried about that, but usually, especially since we're kids, we probably won't get super like in really big trouble. But yeah, chalk is a really fun way to get people engaged. And a former climate strike I was at back in 2019 in San Francisco, people were painting eyes on the ground, like your eye, next to like buildings, like Wells Fargo or like big banks that were, or companies that were supporting fossil fuel exploitation in different parts of the world. So like, you know, we're watching you, different things like that. So you could have like a really good message in your chalk, or you could just have people go crazy and like write whatever they want. I've seen some really, really beautiful chalk art, just like totally spontaneously. So always a really great surprise when you get chalk. Finally, with signs, another good thing is to reduce, reuse, recycle. So I have like so many signs underneath my bed right now, and back home I have even more. So just keep what you have, collect signs afterwards if people are done with them, and you can use them again and again and again. It, you know, kind of builds up so you have less work to do at your next strike. So a really great way to not have to do all of the artwork yourself and also get people engaged is to have an art build. So in high school, when I was organizing, I'm currently a college student, but in high school, we used the school's art supplies, so we didn't have to like buy them ourselves. But so it depends on your school and what your rules are. But usually there's a friendly teacher who will let you work in their classroom during lunch or after school. It's also a good idea to have an art build in like a commonly visible place, because then a lot of people walk by it and be like, oh, what are you guys doing? And then you can recruit people to come to the strike. So if it's not too cold or windy, you could go on like a quad or like a lunch table or something like that and get a lot more people interested in your strike. If your school isn't an option, or if you're out of school, nearby public parks are always great. Just make sure you check the weather. Wind is like your worst enemy at an art build, so make sure you bring things to weigh down the corners of signs and stuff like that, and find like a flat surface. And also make sure your paint isn't leaking through, because I've had many problems with paint leaking through the bottom. And yeah, art builds are really great for empowering other people so that you're not stuck with all the work. And, you know, usually there'll be a couple people there who are even more interested in helping out. So like if you kind of gauge the crowd and talk to people, you can pass off more work and so that you don't have as many things to do, share the burden. And yeah, that helps just get people more engaged. My two of my closest strike friends here and we met at our first art build at the beginning of last semester, and that's like where we started organizing together. So it's really like you meet so many people at an art build. It's really impactful. Next is messaging. So like I mentioned before in the banner slide, you want your biggest message on your big banner. So these pictures here are from an action I went to back in, I think, September. It was from a group called People versus Fossil Fuels, and they were calling Biden to declare a climate emergency. It was an Indigenous-led group, and it was really, really powerful, really impactful. But the biggest thing that I loved about this strike, or one of the biggest things, was that their signs were really, really clear and their messaging was so on point. You can clearly see from these photos what they're fighting for. Their signs and their banners are really color coordinated. So what you want to do for messaging is work together with other people who you're planning your strike with, or on your own if it's just you, and like sit and think, like, as a group, what do you want the headline for your strike to be? Like, if someone were to write a newspaper article about your strike, what would you want the main takeaway to be? And then work backwards from there. Like, if you want the takeaway to be like, students are irritated, or like students are mad that Biden isn't fulfilling climate promises, work backwards from there. Like, what is your message going to be if you want that to be the story? So you can see Fridays for Future messaging for the strike on March 25th if you want inspiration for that specific strike, or you can just like look up general Fridays for Future messaging. There's a lot in there that you can find, little catchphrases or keywords in. When in doubt, simple and to the point is best. Long things people aren't going to read them, or it's going to be way too far to fit on a sign. So yeah. And then also be aware of the messages being sent in photos. You want to make sure that your photos are capturing the message you want to send, and not like little side messages that aren't like really on your key messaging. Sorry, slides are not fully cooperating. Okay, photography. So let me see. I think I skipped a slide. There we go. Messaging continued. You want to be sure to like think about what emotions you're feeling when you are crafting your message. So, a lot of people have like really cute signs that are like that rhyme or like have little fun messages, and that's perfect. I love it so much, and that definitely shows up in a lot of articles and gets people's attention. But you're also allowed to be angry in your messaging too. We are an emergency, you're allowed to be like, hey, I'm a kid and I'm missing school for this. Like, this is awful. And you're also, don't be afraid to call out specific officials and issues in your messaging as well. It's really impactful if you have like a local politician that you want to do more and you have a specific demand for them. Having specific demands in your messaging is really key. And then finally, just try to keep it to like 1 to 4 key demands in your messaging. Don't go too many more, because then it gets to be a lot. I had my first strike that I organized, we had like this huge long banner that was covered in different demands. We could barely fit all of them. And it's like, we had good intentions, but no one was going to read that. So yeah, keep your messages smaller. And then, okay, photography. All of these banners and all these signs are only really useful to you after your strike if you've taken a bunch of photos and you post them. So I know that it's hard if you have like not as many people with you to have a photographer, but don't be afraid to ask like a parent or someone to take pictures for you. So like to make sure that you have good photos of your strike afterwards. So like one person is enough to have an action. So you can have a solo strike of you like with your sign outside of some like office or something outside of, your city council hall, and just take a little selfie. You know what I mean? It makes it really accessible when you have small strikes. For people to be able to see on social media, like, oh, this person just kind of made a sign out and went out and did this thing. It's really accessible. And that's what a lot of Fridays for Future is all about, is getting people like empowered to take action. So for bigger actions, like I said, a designated photographer is ideal, just because then they're not like trying to run around and do other things, manage other tasks. Their sole purpose is to get good photos of every moment so that you can have those photos of those moments. So if you need a parent to do that, if you need an older sibling or whatever to be a photographer, don't be afraid to ask. You don't have to do everything on your own. Definitely don't rely on press to take photos. I think that was my mistake at like one of my first actions, is we were like, oh, the press will be there. And they were, but they they did not take all the photos we wanted them to. We didn't have photos afterwards. It was hard to coordinate. And if you usually press might not show up to your events right away in the beginning, And so, you know, what a lot of people do is they send out press releases afterwards, like, hey, we had this action, this is what happened. And so it's really great to have like a photo in the press release that they can use, or a couple photos. So within like 24 hours, if you're doing a press release, do it fast. Don't wait a week and then send. Some people really like to do Instagram lives too of their actions. There's pros and cons to this. I personally sort of shifted away from it just because not that many people tend to engage with them. And it's kind of nicer to have like really crisp video that you can use of like really specific moments. But it is, if you're looking to engage with people on social media, and if you have like people that you think would engage, definitely go for it. Have a person set to do Instagram live. And then, like I was talking about in messaging, just be aware of the message you're sending. Make sure that you're like when you send photos to press, you are sending photos with like your main demands in the camera. So you want like your big banner with your main demand in there, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And definitely always post on social media, because that's how most people hear about this stuff. So art marshalling. Has anyone heard of an art marshal before? Does anyone know what that is? Okay, feel free to go off mute if you want to give a definition. No, it's okay if not. They go by different names. But did someone say in the chat? Sorry, I'm having trouble. Nope, never heard of it. Okay, no worries at all. So an art marshal is like a designated person that their whole job during the strike is to look at signs, look at art, look at the visuals, and make sure that everything looks clean, looks crisp. So you don't want upside down signs, you don't want drooping banners, because then you lose your whole message and you put all this work into your art and it's like not really there. So this art marshal can double as the photographer. It could even be a parent or an adult. But what's really important about an art marshal is that they're not afraid to go up to a person and be like, hey, your sign is upside down, or go up to a person and be like, hey, can you guys straighten out? Can you, you know, pull this banner tighter? You know, it's not, you don't have to do it in a mean way, obviously, I'm sure you wouldn't, but it's, you know, don't be afraid to call people out and say, hey, you know, do this right. And if someone's getting tired, or if you can tell like someone's not really feeling it with the banner, like switch a person out. Don't be afraid to do that. There have been definitely actions I've done or have been to where it, like a really good shot has been kind of ruined by a banner being like drooping, so you can't read the message, or it looks, you know, not as powerful because people are just like kind of halfway holding the sign, or like, you know. So it's really important to have a good art marshal that makes sure like your message is clear. So next, I know I'm speeding through, but chants. So if you're having a bigger strike with more people, or even a small one with a handful of people, chants are a really fun way to get the energy up and get people hyped up. So big thing with chants is rhythm. I've definitely seen people try to do chants that they have like thought about in their head a little bit, and they're like, oh, this sounds like a message that we like, but they like haven't really like said it out loud, so it just sounds awful. I've definitely done that before. So rhythm is really key. I would keep it simple with call and response at first, and then when you get more comfortable, you could do different things. But like, for example, like, what do we want? And then if you actually, you know what, can we go off mute for a second and do like practice this one little call and response? So it goes, what do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. So, and can I get a volunteer to read the call, and then we can all go off and respond. Don't be shy. Are you raising your hand? It's okay if not. Okay, I can do it. It's okay. So everyone get ready to go off mute. Oh, sorry. I think I went forward. But what do we want? Climate justice.
Climate justice.
Climate justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Amazing. I love it. So strong. I don't think I can go back. Oh, I can. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, call and response, super easy, super simple. But yeah, avoid chants that have no rhythm or long wordy things. And if you're gonna make one up on the spot, that's cool. Just make sure that you like say it out loud to yourself first to make sure the rhythm works. Because nothing worse than a chant that like doesn't work rhythmically. And then a thing that's really helpful to me is printing out or opening a doc on your phone of a few good chants to use. I don't have the link right now, but we're going to send out afterwards and link with the YouTube video to this video in the description, sort of like a spreadsheet of some chants that you can use in your protests. So definitely check that out. There's also, if you just Google, there are plenty of great climate strike chants to do. So definitely takes down stress day of if you have some chants written out. So next we're going to talk about speakers, you know, not like physical speakers, but like people who are speaking. So for starters, it's definitely possible to use a variety of different like mediums for getting the speaker's voice out there. So you can just have someone talk with a loud voice, especially if you have a small group. This is great. Perfect. But if you have a larger group, I would highly recommend a microphone system or a megaphone. Both can work. It just depends on what resources you have available to you. Obviously, those things are both very expensive. A good quality megaphone is like $40. So definitely kind of on the pricier side. But every strike I've been at, we've just been able to borrow those materials from people. So definitely reach out to your community, reach out to teachers, reach out to parents, friends. You might not know it, but you probably know someone with a megaphone or something like that. My first couple climate strikes, I borrowed a megaphone from the track department at my school. So they definitely have them. You can even use, like, I think my friend used like a karaoke machine one time for a microphone system. So there are lots of options. Just don't be afraid to ask around. But worst case scenario, you can just talk really loudly. Just make sure that you are projecting. Say it with your chest, you know. So you're going to try to get, if you're going to try to get speakers, you want to make sure they keep their speeches kind of short, and you're probably going to want to go over their speech with them ahead of time. My first strike, clearly I learned a lot from it because it was not perfect, but it's being used for like every bad example here. But we had so many speakers because we didn't have like one person dedicated to like making sure people were like assigned to speak. So a bunch of people were just inviting their friends to speak. So we ended up having like 14 speakers, and it went on for a really long time. And we didn't vet every single speech. So one person was really, really not on message at all. And it was really detracted from the theme of the strike, especially because there were a lot of media there. So definitely make sure you review speeches beforehand. And if it's not a message that you want to be sent, don't be afraid to be like, hey, either we change this or you can't speak, I'm sorry, you know, because it's, you know, you and your friends or whatever strike, and it's important to make sure that you're getting the message out there that you want to get sent. So yeah, keeping speeches a little bit shorter is always good. We don't want the audience to be too bored. And then try to limit the number of speakers if you can. I mean, you can kind of eyeball this. It's really up to you how you want your strike to go. But the larger the group is, the more speakers and the longer speeches you can get away with. But it always helps to have like another activity going on in the background, like chalk art or something like that. But that being said, read the crowd because, you know, there's always things change in the moment. And then if you have like a small group or like a mostly trusted audience, you can have an open mic session. This might be a little bit more stressful. So this might be something that you want to do like maybe your third or fourth strike. But like I've never ran an open mic session because I'm always afraid after that first strike experience that someone's going to go up and say something awful. But you know, if you have like a trusted group of friends that you're striking with, feel free to have an open mic and just let people say what's on their mind. You know, everyone hopefully is there because they believe in the cause. So people probably have some really good things to say. More speaker stuff. Make sure that your speakers are covering different parts of the messaging. You don't want them to be super repetitive. You don't want people to be saying the same thing over and over and again. So ideally, your speakers would each cover a different part of your demands, a different part of your messaging. And sharing personal stories is really powerful. Don't underestimate that. And then another really good thing to do during speeches is have action items for the crowd. So like you could have everyone call their representative at the same time and flood that representative's phone lines and be like, you know, give them that number, be like, hey, call President call Senator XYZ at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and tell them this specific thing. And then everyone like stands back and calls that person and like flood their phone lines. It's great. Or you could do a little research and have them all text a phone number or text a number to register to vote. You could have a die-in, which is where people all like lie down on the floor and it's a really solemn thing, lie down on the ground to like represent the deaths that are happening because of the climate crisis and the horrible things that our generation might face. There are plenty of other options of things you could do during your speech, but really involving the crowd is a great way to get people engaged. And then interspacing speeches with chants and songs and activities is always great too, to keep people engaged. We're almost done with my lecture part. Don't worry, we're going to get to activity soon. But one more thing that's important about speeches is to make sure you're heard. So hold the microphone close to your mouth. I know this sounds so simple, but every strike I've been at, there's always one person who like is not heard. So hold the microphone close to your mouth or the mouthpiece. If you're comfortable, have the speaker take their mask off. You can wipe down the mouthpiece with like wet wipes or a rag with like a spray on it for each person if you would like. Really don't be afraid to say it with your chest, like be loud, be obnoxious. That's the whole point of a strike, is disruption. And then have someone on standby. You could do the art marshal, you could do a parent, whatever, to let a speaker know if they can't be heard. Don't be afraid to like tap them on the shoulder and be like, hey, we can't hear you, because no one wants to listen to someone who's just like mumbling and you can't really hear them. And oftentimes a person doesn't know if they can't be heard. So definitely just let them know. And then also, when you're giving a speech, you get nervous, and a lot of times people speed up. So make sure you're like slow yourself down. Too slow is better than too fast. And then this down here, this is like a terrible megaphone, and this is a good megaphone on top. So, you can use whatever megaphone you have access to, but I would highly recommend the megaphone up top. That's a lot bigger, more expensive, but these are the kind they have like tracks things at school, so you can borrow those. The one down below is like $12 on Amazon, and it's, you can buy it. That's where I got my first megaphone, but it literally broke like 5 minutes in, and then my friend got a different one for a different action, and it also broke like 10 minutes in. So maybe there are good ones that look like that out there, but the little tiny ones on Amazon, do not buy. don't recommend. All right, okay. This is the last thing. This is going to be what we're talking about for our activity, but visual strategy. So visual strategy itself is just figuring out where you want people to stand, where you want banners to be, like what kind of levels you want. So think about, if you look at this image, this was from an action back in, I think, 2020. Where people from the Sunrise Movement went and woke up Mitch McConnell very early in the morning in protest of Breonna Taylor's murder. And so they had really worked out this visual strategy. I think actually on the next slide, you can see this is where they drew it out ahead of time. So basically they knew they were going to have like a main banner with their slogan, and they were going to have a couple handheld signs and a couple picket signs. And so what they did ahead of time was they said, okay, we're going to have 2 people holding the banner in the front, and then we're going to have these people on the sides and some people in the back with like holding handheld signs higher. And so they kind of knew, this might look like an accident in this photo, but it was really purposeful. As you can see here. So this is kind of plays into the role of an art marshal of I guess just sort of like in the moment, that person could be like telling people where to stand, and ahead of time telling people who are holding banners like what to do with them. So this is just going to really help your photos look really great. It's definitely not like something that's necessary. So if this is your first strike, it's okay. If it's a really small strike, it's okay to not have this at all. It's okay to not have messaging like totally worked out. Like all of this stuff is totally optional. It's just something that would elevate your strike a little bit more if you have the time and the resources to put into it. But even if you have a really small strike with like 1 or 2 people, visual strategy does play a role, because you can have yourself holding your sign, and then you can have like the Capitol building in the background, or you can have like your City Hall in the background. So visual strategy, no matter how big or small your protest is something that it's nice to think about. And finally, making sure that if you're having speakers, that they're kind of well placed too, so that when you're taking photos, you've got like the crowd speakers and then maybe like the building of whatever you're protesting in the background, because that makes it really clear who the target is and what your messaging is directed at. So that being said, now we're going to jump into our activity. We don't have that many people here, so I think we can probably stay in this main room and not do breakouts. But I think we're going to all take like 5-ish minutes and think about the kind of strike you're going to have, how many people you're going to have, where you're going to have it, and just take like a little sketchbook, take like a paper and a pencil, literally like right here. And I want you to draw out what you want your strike to look like. And you can have a couple like messages if you already have that figured out. If not, that's okay. You can just write like message here, or like, you know, main banner like it has in the example. But yeah, just take like a few minutes to write a little bit of visual strategy. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute, ask away. If you want to show me what you're working on, feel free. Kat is also an expert. I'm not an expert, but Kat is really an expert. So definitely feel free to ask. I'll shut up now, but have fun. Oh, right. And Kat, sorry, Kat said it sent in the chat, but if you haven't created a copy of the worksheet yet, feel free to use this worksheet too, to take notes and to put in your visual strategy example. right. If you're still working, all good. Definitely keep working. But I'd love to see some of what you guys have come up with, if you're willing to share. Also, I love what you said in the chat, Elizabeth. Having a few friends, but the very loud ones is perfect. I love it. Anyone want to share? It's okay if it's not fully fleshed out yet. It's all good. In fact, if you have questions or like want people's ideas, since we're such a small group, it's a great way to bounce ideas off each other.
I maybe just real quick, one thing because we're talking about chants and stuff like that, with the loud people tend to, if they know the chant or like one engaging thing that also takes, that can like pass time, is if you practice the chants with the crowd. For one, if you have your chant leader can be someone else than the actual speaker, so someone who knows the chants really well. And then if you have like a core group of people that know the chants ahead of time, they can like really get that energy going, because once there's energy in the crowd, then it's kind of a really great cyclical process where everybody like energizes them like each other. But sometimes it just takes a few people to get that energy going. So if you have a few people who know the chants ahead of time, that's really good. But what you can also do is practice them with the people there. So you can like, hey, we're going to do this chant together, like what Jamie was doing this earlier, where she's like, it's, what do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it now? And then you just practice it with them a few times. The first few times are going to be a little bit like ours was a little bit ago, where people are like, climate justice, and then like after a few times they're gonna like go and the energy, and they'll get like the picture and they'll get it going. So don't be afraid if the first few times the chant's kind of like just power through, put energy in, and it'll get there.
Very well put. And just like Kat said in the chat earlier, it's people love to come back to strikes if they feel like they were needed and they feel like a sense of responsibility and are really like engaged in what's going on. Because people go to protest because they're, you know, upset about something and they want to get that out there. They want to get their emotions out, you know? And so like being able to lead a chant or being able to hold a banner and like look angry and, you know, like make that impact is really like what people come to strikes to do. So it's you know, people definitely keep coming back if you give them responsibility and if you empower them and delegate tasks to them. So anyone, I don't want to call on people, but if anyone wants to share, you really please do. I would love to see what you've all come up with. Okay. Let me see. I'm actually, you know what, I'm gonna call on someone if you're not too afraid. If you really don't want to, it's okay. But I actually cannot see your names right now. Let me pull that up. Okay. Louise, are you interested in sharing? Feel free to go off mute.
I mean, I could share, but it's like I don't have very concrete ideas in mind, so I kind of just need like a layout of the banner. It kind of does look like the one that you have as an example, but just like I think it's really nice to just have the, oh gosh, I don't know if you can even see that, just have the banner in the front. The main banner in the front, because I think it's just people could see it, you know, like if you're leading the way with, you know, and then I was thinking like two people in the back. Oh, sorry, let me plug in my laptop.
All good.
Two people behind the main banner that are lifting up one sign together as well, maybe like another slogan or something like that. But yeah.
That was perfect. I love it. Very well put together. It's amazing. I'm wondering, do you have any speakers at your protest that you're planning on having? And if so, where do you want them to stand?
I'll think about that.
Okay, it's okay. Just something to food for thought. But it looks amazing. I'm so happy. Not to terrify you guys, but since there's only two other people, Elizabeth, are you interested in sharing?
Sure.
Okay.
So basically we have this one area near my house and it has a whole bunch of benches and stuff. And so I was thinking of bringing my friends to that area and like holding up signs there. I don't really know what else I should do, but it's not because it's not really that big, or not, it might happen, might not, depends on what my parents say, but so.
Thinking positively, it's gonna happen. I'm manifesting it for you, Elizabeth. But that's so exciting. Do you have a little a sketch that you want to share? It's if not, that's okay. But
Yeah.
no judgment at all. Oh, that looks so good. Oh my gosh. An artist.
Thank you.
I love it. Amazing. And so wait, really quickly, what kind of signs are you planning on using? Or this, it looked like picket signs to me, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think I get some most handheld signs, but I have signs in the back that I got inspiration from. There's like there's no Planet B. My friend came up with live here, love here. Then climate change matters, all that type of stuff. So.
Aw, I love it. And I was admiring the signs in your background. I love it so much. Always a great way to start a conversation over Zoom class too about climate justice. Phoebe, are you interested in sharing too?
Yeah, I wanted to have one right now. I have just a small group. So in the picture I made, I have just a minute, let me.
Okay.
If we land on the Grand Canyon,
Can you guys see it? I have, this is what I want for a bigger group, but then I have what I want to do for the smaller group. And the only difference is there's not going to be a speaker. I mean there is going to be a speaker for both, but because the group I have right now is like 4 or 5 people, so we won't be holding a banner, but we'll just be holding one big picket sign, and we'll all just be walking around it with a chant leader and everything.
I love it. I love that you have 2 models. That's so cool. Perfect. Actually, that's a really great way to go about any Fridays for Future protest, to having 2 models, because it's like, you know, some protests will be bigger and some will be smaller. And sometimes you don't know if your protest, how many people your protest is going to be. Like our last one, we thought it was going to be like, we issued a permit for 1,000 people and like 300 people showed up. Maybe actually, no, it was it was really small. It was like 50 people. But the police were very confused. But so it's always actually a great idea to have that 2 options. So I love it. I love it. That was really good. Did anyone get inspired when they saw another person's poster to do something different, or because I can just say I got inspired by Phoebe's right now to have 2 options. Okay, it's okay if you're shy. All good. I'm just manifesting the inspiration for us. So while we're on this, while we're talking, are there any questions people have so far about anything we've covered? I do have like 1 or 2 more slides, but you know, any questions about making specific types of banners or signs, art supplies? Yeah, go for it, Elizabeth.
So it's not necessarily about the art supplies or any of that. That I actually last year I didn't get to do it, but last year, but I actually asked the police department if I could put up signs for like reduce, reuse, recycle, and they said yeah for about a week. But I was just thinking, like, I mean, obviously you don't know where I live or any of that sort of stuff. Like the best places where to put such signs or whatever, because I don't know how many or where I should like any public places or something like that.
Yeah, great question. I would say for starters, you know, when I'm thinking about things like this, I always like to backtrack and think about like what impact you want the signs to have. So for example, if you want people to recycle, think about like, you know, I mean, I guess that one's kind of self-explanatory, but you want people to recycle, but you know, you can put those near trash cans. But like I guess if you're putting up signs for like a climate strike, if you're putting up signs about specific messaging, like think about what kind of effect what you want people to do when they see your signs. So could you answer that question for me for starters?
I'm sorry, can you repeat this?
Sorry, it's a little confusing. Do you know what you want people to do when they see your signs? Is there like Kat, if you have something to add, feel free. But you look like you wanted to say something. But like, do you when people see your signs, is there like an action you want them to take?
I kind of want just to like, because I don't know, because people are usually pretty adapted and pretty committed to their typical schedule, so I don't know if I'd be able to change much of what they did, or change a little something in their everyday lives. But if they just knew that there are some people trying to help, and maybe they would be a little bit inspired to at least like tell someone, saying like, oh, I saw this the other day, I think it was pretty cool, or something like that. I don't know, just for the word that people are trying to do something that we should.
Yeah, I love that. I think if I saw a sign made by you, I would definitely want to spread the word. So that's a really good point. I think since you want to have people discussing what's on your signs, a place where a lot of people talk and discuss things is maybe a library or a school, or places where people like to share ideas. Maybe at a traffic light, where people are waiting and they're forced to look at something, a bus stop, places where people are forced to sit and wait and maybe talk to each other. Are really good places. Any kind of bulletin board where the community likes to share messages. You could always ask like store owners if they'd be willing to put a sign up in front of your store. I used to do like musical theater when I was really young, and we used to put up ask restaurant owners up and down like this downtown area if we could put our posters in their windows, and sometimes they say yes. So places like that where a lot of dialogue is happening are probably good places to start, given what you want people to do when they see your signs. Does that help a little bit? Amazing. Any other questions or any follow-ups to that? I love that idea. I'm really excited about it.
I'll see if I can update you somehow if I ever.
Yes, please do. I would love to see your signs and hear about how it went. I think you might be able to actually, I don't know, Kat, if you could email back to Fridays for Future, or if you're in a Fridays for Future Slack or something, maybe Kat can let you know how to do that. But yeah, any other questions or ideas, or anyone else have any thoughts about that specifically? Like, oh, I had an idea about where to put the signs. Okay. In that case, we can move on to our last bit, which is just there's power in simplicity. I know I went over a lot of things today that were maybe more like advanced than you're prepared to do for your first strike. So just like, don't be afraid to be imperfect. Like the most important thing is that you're getting out there and actually doing a strike. So even if it's just one person, even if you just have a little cardboard sign with like an Amazon thing on the back, and you're just like, overnight, like drawing in Sharpie on it or something and posting on Instagram, like that is still impactful, because you're getting your message out there and you're showing people that it's doable to have these actions. And that, because you can have a one-person action one week, one Friday, and then post about it, and then a couple people see it and get inspired. And then the next week your action has got 3 people, and the next week it's got 5 people, you know what I mean? So really small actions can make a really big difference, and that is what Fridays for Future is all about. So we're kids, so we're not gonna be perfect, don't be afraid to, mess up. It's okay. And don't fall into pressure to be really professional. Just having a really relatable and doable action is sometimes way more inspiring than having a really professional action. So if you look at this photo right here, I don't know, I kind of get the chills the first time I looked at this photo, because it was like, the angle was really good, it was really powerful. Oh, sorry. I don't know, it was really simple science, but it made me feel an emotion, and it made me feel like inspired. So yeah, just remember that you have power. Yeah. And then if you have any more questions, we can definitely open that up again after this. But if you think of something after this, feel free to contact us. Our Instagram, Twitter, and email are up here, and I think we can put them in the chat after I close this presentation, or maybe Kat can. Thanks, Kat. But feel free to contact us in any way. Get in contact with your local Fridays for Future chapter if there's one near you. And then also my Instagram is up here if you want to reach out to me directly. That is also an option. So I guess, Elizabeth, if you have an Instagram, it's okay if not, but if you would like to use that, you can, or email works just as well. So yeah, definitely if you have ideas, if you have questions, whatever, if you just want to share how your action went, we would love to hear about it. So definitely reach out. And yeah, thank you so much for coming to this presentation. It's been really nice to get to meet all of you. This was really cool to have such a small group. I love it. So you can sign up for the rest of our workshops at this link here, and maybe Kat will put that into the chat as well if she hasn't already. But there are plenty of more that are coming up that are going to be really, really cool. And so yeah, maybe Kat, you can say more because I don't know that much about the rest of them, but go for it.
Sure. All right. So we've done, the first one was the basics of the climate strikes, where we had an overview of the different action types. The second one was creating a strike story, where we went into narrative and demands and stuff like that. And we've got this one of making the strike visual. And then coming up on March 3rd, we have building people power, where it's getting the word out and building community. And then we've got activating the press, where it's talking about engaging journalists and kind of having the professional kind of way of getting that message out. And then the last one's going to be navigating safety, where we talk about different permits, marshaling, nitty gritty logistics stuff to consider. And then maybe potentially, hopefully, we'll take those different elements and then have one more series where we dive further into them, what changes the larger the strike gets. But this really covers the basics and all the important things that kind of come up. And then also just learning, it's just like thinking through what is the effect that I want to have, what's the message I want to get out there, and how do I get out there. And we're all figuring it out as we go. It's not rocket science, and anyone and everyone can do it. All right, well, thank you. Jamie, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute. Before we go, let me stop screen sharing so we can all see each other. Could we do that chant one more time? The what do we want, climate justice? And this time, let's say it with our chest, and we'll have a little more power to it. Yeah? Are you ready? Okay, everyone unmute. Okay, what do we want?
Climate
justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Great, thank you guys so much for coming, and feel free to stick around if you want to talk with us. But thank you for being here. It was great to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.